Hey everybody, Mike Tatarski here in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, with another weekly update on things here. Probably just wait a few seconds, give people some time to tune in. Hey Mark, good to see you again. Yeah, so I'm in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, just doing one of my weekly updates on how things are going here. So in terms of coronavirus, it's more good news here. This will be the 14th day without any detected community transmission nationwide. So the Da Nang outbreak that had us pretty concerned for a few weeks is over. Um, Transport is back to normal nationally. Hanoi has reopened bars and nightclubs. Ho Chi Minh City also reopened bars and nightclubs. So yeah, great news there. Um, Speaking of Da Nang, there's a Central Coast is going to get hit by a pretty powerful tropical storm tomorrow. There's a likelihood that over 1 million people will be evacuated along the coast. That's throughout 5 or 6 provinces. They're not sure exactly where landfall will be in terms of which province, but tomorrow morning or afternoon, the storm will be impacting the Central Coast. So it's bad timing. I mean, that region is just coming out of their outbreak. Da Nang only reopened public beaches last Friday. So they only got about a week to open and before they are getting shut down again by this storm. So we have to wait and see what kind of impact that will have on the central region. They're expecting a lot of rain, strong winds, landslides in mountainous areas. So definitely something to keep an eye on tomorrow and over the weekend. Um, okay, you may have seen some headlines possibly about international flights resuming for Vietnam. It's a bit misleading. So the borders here have been closed since late March because of the pandemic. Um, the only people allowed in have been Vietnamese nationals on special repatriation flights, and then select experts, foreign experts and managers that have come in on chartered flights and then quarantined upon arrival. So the government has apparently given permission for flights to resume between here and Taipei, Tokyo, Seoul, and Guangzhou in southern China. But the airlines haven't actually started flights yet, so it's a little confusing as to what's actually happening there. Um, some outbound flights will be departing for, I know, Tokyo and Seoul later this month, but there's still no inbound commercial international flights. And even when those do start, they'll still be passengers will be quarantined upon arrival. You have to be tested before you leave, tested when you arrive. Um, Quarantine regulations will still be in place. This will not be for tourists or anything like that. Yeah, Mark says, yeah, going through similar crises in the U.S. with fires in the West and hurricanes in the South. Yeah, I'm from New Orleans actually, so I always keep a close eye on the Gulf Coast during hurricane season. So I was thankful to see New Orleans spared by Sally, but obviously horrible to see the flooding and damage in Alabama and Florida and I think Georgia now as well. And fires are kind of mind-boggling in their scale, so that's definitely on my mind a lot. Um, yeah, it's tough to see for sure. Um, PC Centric asks, is there a mask mandate in Vietnam? Do people not wearing one get a huge fine? The mask rules have been a little unclear recently. I think they're still technically required, and you can be fined up to about $15 for not wearing one, but it seems to be quite lax. I mean, mask usage is high, but definitely not universal. Um, I still wear one when I'm out and about, unless I'm running, just because that's uncomfortable. Um, but I see a lot of people, both foreigners and Vietnamese, not wearing them. Um, you're generally supposed to. For example, I know if you go see like theaters or movie theaters here are open. So I saw Tenet last week, and they had rules to wear a mask throughout the entire screening, which I did, but not everybody did. But again, it seems like there's no cases here, so there's not as much. Uh, I guess some people feel there's not as much of a need to wear masks. So that's kind of more of a sign of confidence in how well things are going here. I said at the start that this is our 14th day without any detected community transmission nationwide. So we'd gotten up to 99 days in July, and then the Da Nang outbreak started, but that's now under control. Da Nang is reopening. Of course, now it's going to get hit by a tropical storm. Um, but yeah, the coronavirus situation here is very good. They also asked, does Vietnam produce a lot of the world's PPE, personal protective equipment? I know they produce a lot. I don't know what the percentages are. Um, there was just a story from Nikkei Asian Review yesterday that a lot of garment factories have switched to producing masks to be exported globally. So again, I don't know what the numbers are, but certainly there's a lot of that going on. And actually, Vingroup, the country's largest private corporations, has been producing ventilators as well. I think both for to be used in Vietnam and for export as well. And thankfully, given the low case total here, there hasn't been an extreme need for PPE, so the country has been able to export some for sale, and I know they've also donated some to the U.S. and European countries, and I think China and some other places like that as well in recent months. Yeah, just to kind of reset, I'm in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. It's about 9:15 on Thursday night, just giving a weekly update on things here. So I just said, but coronavirus situation is very much under control. But the big news here over the next couple of days will be a tropical storm, a pretty strong one, that is going to impact the Central Coast tomorrow. Somewhere between Da Nang and Hue, it looks like, those two cities on the coast. Um, yeah, so that's people are concerned about that. There's talk of evacuating over a million people, about 1.1 million people in that region, and concerns of heavy rain and flash flooding and wind damage and landslides in the mountainous areas. So everyone here will have their eye on that over the next couple of days. Um, International flights, there's been some confusing news about that over the past few days. So on the 15th, Tuesday night, I think the government technically allowed flights from six other Asian cities to come into Vietnam, but airlines aren't actually flying them yet. So it's confusing. I think some ministry said they would be allowed, then another organization said they're not. So still no commercial inbound international flights for Vietnam. Those have been shut down since late March because of the pandemic. Honey Bear Extracts asks, uh, how is the tension here between U.S. and China? Uh, Actually, I had a question about this last time. I mean, Vietnam certainly people here pay close attention to it. China is very unpopular among the general public. There's a lot of antipathy towards the country. I mean, it goes back centuries, whereas the U.S. is seen pretty favorably. Even a lot of people here are fans of Donald Trump because he's seen as tough on China. Um, so anything going on in the South China Sea or the EC, as it's called here, and the trade war and all of that is closely watched, particularly the trade war, because Vietnam's manufacturing sector is benefiting from that because a lot of companies have moved here from China. Um, yeah, so the U.S.-China relationship is gets a lot of attention here for sure. So another story this week. So last October, this was a global story, but 39 Vietnamese were found dead in a shipping container in southeast England. There was a trial this week where four Vietnamese who helped organize the trafficking ring were sentenced to jail for between 2.5 and 7.5 years. Which I actually covered that story when it happened last October, and it was definitely, I mean, it shocked a lot of people here because it kind of showed the scale of trafficking of people going out of the country and attempting to get to countries like the UK and France or the Netherlands illegally. But there was an interesting story where a father of one of the deceased said he didn't want to see any longer prison terms than that since it was an accident. So interesting forgiveness or leniency, I suppose, from one of the fathers. So that was also a story here this week. But the big one right now is the storm that's going to make landfall tomorrow. Again, coronavirus going very well, which is great for people living here, but no, it's still weird watching the rest of the world struggle, or not the entire rest of the world, but many countries struggle with the virus. But yeah, if anyone has any questions about anything else happening here or anything related to Vietnam, please let me know. And if anyone is thinking of visiting because things are going so well here, that's unfortunately not going to be doable for quite some time. There's still no talk of opening to tourism, which I mean is sensible, obviously. So it'll definitely be next year at some point before any kind of tourism is allowed. Probably not until the second half of next year. It's hard to know at this point. Be able to reset for any new. Oh, somebody asked why am I here? Well, I live here. I've lived here for a while now. Moved here as an English teacher originally, and then got into reporting. So that's what I do now. But yeah, just to quickly reset, I'm Mike Tatarski, journalist in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, doing my weekly update on things in Vietnam. It's almost 9:30 on Thursday evening here. So just big headlines this week. Coronavirus going very well. We're at 2 weeks with no detected community transmission. Um, Borders are still closed to commercial flights. You can fly out fairly normally, but you can't enter unless you're a pre-approved expert or returning Vietnamese national on a charter flight. Um, yeah, so virus going very well. Um, Less good news, the Central Coast is going to get hit by a pretty strong tropical storm tomorrow. Um, I think they're forecasting winds of about 80 or 90 miles an hour at landfall, which I guess that would be, I think that's about a Category 1 hurricane equivalent. Still going to be very dangerous, a lot of rain and wind, and there will surely be landslides. That region is pretty mountainous. So all eyes are on that right now, with over 1 million people expected to be evacuated from coastal areas. Oh, and one other big story. This I mentioned it last week, but there was a trial of 29 people involved in a deadly land dispute at the start of this year outside of Hanoi. Um, it's a very sensitive topic, and it's hard to know exactly what happened. But 3 police officers died, and 1 villager was killed. So the 29 defendants, 2 were sentenced to death for murder, and the other 27 received uh, prison terms or probation of varying length. So somebody just asked if they respect freedom of the press. There is not freedom of the press here. Um, it, it's There is censorship. It's nothing like China, not bad, not like that. But state media, the major media outlets are state owned. So yeah, there's not free press here. But I don't want it to make it out to be like China or North Korea or something. Those places are far stricter and more controlling. All right, Cat is walking across the keyboard. I'm just going to stay on for another couple minutes, so let me know if you have any other questions about how things are going in Vietnam or life here at the moment. I think most people here would say they're lucky to be here, given how well the virus has been contained. Although it's still sad to see a lot of businesses in tourist areas are either out of business or in serious financial trouble. So that is kind of depressing to go around the tourist areas and see that there's just nobody there. Lots of for rent signs out, and people out of work and that sort of stuff. So I'll do one more reset before logging off. I'm in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam's biggest city, also known as Saigon, casually, just with a weekly update from things here. So, oh geez, sorry, my cat is messing with my computer. So the coronavirus situation very much under control. We're at 14 days straight without any detected community transmission of the virus. Um, Social distancing regulations are being relaxed. Domestic transport is back to normal. Um, well, it is, except for the storm that's hitting the Central Coast tomorrow. That'll surely probably close a couple airports and cancel some flights. Around a million people expected to be evacuated. So that'll be something to watch tomorrow and over the weekend, the impact from that. Um, and then some sort of commercial international flights will be resumed in the next few weeks. We don't know when. It was supposed to happen on the 15th, a couple days ago, but they have not, the government hasn't agreed on entry regulations and quarantine and testing setups and all of that. So, oh, that was my cat's tail. uh, so yeah, still no inbound commercial international flights. That's been the case since late March. I don't know when that's going to change. It's a complicated situation globally, so not surprising that they're taking their time. And yeah, so if anyone has any final questions, let me know. Also, if you'd like to see this in text form, I do send out a Substack newsletter every Friday morning Vietnam time. It's vietnamweekly.substack.com. Free subscription. Somebody asked, what about outbound flights? Yeah, there's still outbound flights. I mean, fewer than there used to be, but you can leave if you want to on a normal flight. Um, I think the planes come in with cargo and then leave with whatever passengers are around. Abdur Odonis said, does typical Vietnamese have any opinion on the American presidential election? Do they think the U.S. is crazy? It's a good question. I mean, most people will know what's going on. I mean, they're not going to know the intricacies of mail-in voting or the mess with the post office or anything like that. But Trump is actually fairly popular here. He's seen as being tough on China, and his image, realistic or not, of being wealthy, some people admire. There's definitely admiration for the rich here, which is interesting. We have a bit less of that in the States these days. So people pay attention, but it's kind of more the U.S. is generally popular. So whether Biden or Trump wins, the U.S. will still have a pretty good image here. The more worrying social issues in the U.S. don't translate here, so people aren't as tuned into that stuff, which is understandable. It's across the world. But yeah, I'm gonna log off now. Again, my weekly newsletter, it's vietnamweekly.substack.com, free subscription. So I would appreciate it if you signed up to that. It goes out every Friday morning, Vietnam time, covers what I just talked about and a bit more. And yeah, thanks for the good questions. Always interesting to see what people have to ask about Vietnam. So I'll